and it's different from the other ones. The reason it's different, well, this actually comes out of really, I think it probably was a reaction to the first panel meeting on this project all those years ago, when one of the issues that was raised is the reception of the stuff that we're doing. And lurking behind that is the question of, if you're a student reading a Shakespeare text in the classroom, which is a typical activity in schools and universities, etc., what actually do they find difficult? And we were intrigued by this question. So Sean, myself, and Matthew got together and have been doing a little pilot study regarding this, and we thought you might like to hear what the preliminary results are.
Okay, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because we're running out of time, and also I think we're probably flagging by now. Okay, so what do students find rather difficult? Well, I asked the student, and this is what he said: symbolic, intricate, and beautiful. Okay, so it's a fairly mixed reaction. He's 16 years old. He's just studied Macbeth for the first time. Okay. Why are we doing this? Because Shakespeare is enormously popular, as we know, and the British Council study found some of the following data. They interviewed 18,000 students across 18,000 students across 15 countries, aged between 18 and 34, and they found that 44% of them had read or watched Shakespeare. The countries where Shakespeare was most popularly studied were India, Mexico, and Brazil. 64 million children around the world study Shakespeare. And in 2016, the Shakespeare app was downloaded 8 million times. Okay, so what do they find difficult about Shakespeare's language? Well, we wanted to find out specifically what they identify as difficult and how they interpret these difficulties. How well they understand specific linguistic forms, and when they're talking with other students, what do they think about Shakespeare's language? Okay, so we designed a study in which we gave them 3 tasks. The first task, we gave them 6 extracts from a variety of plays, about 80 words each. They had to underline sections that they found difficult and try to interpret them. In a second task, they had to rate the difficulty of 20 sentences taken from various plays, which capture a variety of possible difficulties. And in the third task, in focus groups, they addressed questions about what they thought was difficult about Shakespeare. Okay, so for example, in the extracts, they would look at something like, who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? They might underline fardels, and they might conjecture that it means something heavy. Okay, the extracts here, they came from Richard III, Taming the Shrew, Henry V, Hamlet, Lear, and Much Ado. Okay, in the second task, the sentences, they had to say whether they, on a Likert scale, they had to say whether they didn't understand it at all or they understood it very well. Okay, now these I drew on your book, David, I think on my words, and also on Keith Johnson's book, Shakespeare's Language, for some of these features. So the vasty fields of France would be seeing if they understood metrical convenience, and so on. A variety of things. A number of archaisms, particularly. Okay. Also things like functional shift, the penultimate example there, King Lear, a better where to find. So these kind of things, did they understand these aspects of language? Okay, more of these, false friends, coinages, affixation, etc. And for the third focus group task, we got them doing discussion on Padlet. Padlet, if you don't know, is a little application. It's kind of a virtual discussion board. The students can access it through their mobile phones. Basically, we had them having a little discussion in a group first. then using the QR code, they accessed this, and they were able to type in their impressions of the questions. What do you like and dislike about Shakespeare? What do you find tricky, etc. And there's an example of it in action. You can see on the screen at the back how the students' contributions to the discussion developed. Okay, who participated? Well, we had some native speakers from Lancaster Girls' Grammar School and Lancaster University, and then 2 groups of students at the University of Barcelona. Okay, so we've got native and non-native speakers. Okay, results from the native speakers. The native speakers, both from the Girls' Grammar and the linguistic undergraduates, they sort of identified fairly similar results as difficult words and so forth. Okay. The most difficult items were remarkably similar in the second task. And in their discussion, they said that they liked the fact that Shakespeare was innovative and creative, complex makes you think, so forth, the language is poetic, eloquent, and so forth, but they found it wordy, lengthy, convoluted, outdated, context dependent. They missed out on a lot of the jokes. And they found tricky things that they found apostrophes used for elision, punctuation, and metaphor. They weren't sure if the meanings of some words were the same as present day English, etc. Okay, non-native speakers. Oh, look, very similar results. Again, they found similar items difficult. Okay, and the most difficult items in the sentences are remarkably similar to the native speakers. And they liked the plots and the character construction, the locations, identification with issues and characters, but they didn't like, they thought it was overcomplicated, pretentious, pedantic, overexposed, overrated. I think there was a bit of sort of nationalistic rivalry there coming in. And things they found most difficult were the archaic vocabulary, the historical and classical references, although there we have to say there were a couple of Erasmus students from Turkey, and they said, classical reference, no problem. We study that at school. So particularly Mediterranean students, but perhaps particularly from the Eastern Mediterranean, didn't find it so difficult. Long sentence structure was another problem. Okay. So, what conclusions can we draw from this? Well, native speakers, non-native speakers seem to find the same kind of things difficult. Words trump unusual constructions, ambiguities, metaphors. Most cases completely unknown. Top examples: yclept, gramercy, tro, feign, woot, mar, haggard. Clearly students need training in these kind of words. And occasionally, because the sense doesn't seem to fit the context, because the meaning has changed over time. Okay. Our goals, we'd like to find out more about what students find, students from different countries, different language backgrounds, find difficult when they read Shakespeare. We would like to create an app for students to learn about Shakespeare's language, but we need time, money, and collaborators. Okay, and we would also like to assess the quality of and help improve the translations of Shakespeare's texts. So, thank you very much.